Okay, I got a problem on the board. Everybody turn your iPads my way. Show me that you got that thing copied down and you're ready to go. I got two people. Oh, you were on your phone, that's why. All right, not you. I was talking to him. All right, so now here's the vertex. I know the vertex. Do you know the vertex? I'm abbreviating it. What's a vertex? Arrow, what's a vertex? 3, 5. And then the axis of symmetry runs right down the middle of the parabola. So if I was going to graph this thing, I'd go to over 3 and up 5, and then it's a parabola that's this way, because there's no negative in front. And then that dotted line that runs right down the middle. So many kids, when it says axis of symmetry, they write 3. And they're like part way there. What did you actually have to write? Say it if you know it. X equals 3, yeah. Okay, so are we good on that part? Just sketching a parabola. What's the difference between that and actually graphing a parabola? You actually need points, like more points. And only one point we have right now is that vertex, 3, 5. Always pick things that are near the x. So like instead of 3, put in 4. Everybody put in 4, please, and just tell me what point you would get. Don't say it, write it. Sophia, you're putting in the 4. Walk me through it. What do you do? 4 minus 3 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Plus 5 is 6. So 4, 6. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, cool. So that's one of the days that we had, which was actually ridiculously easy. But can you go backwards? Let's say I say the vertex is 2, -3. Can you write me the equation for that? Once you know the vertex, you should be able to oh, I can write that equation. Did you start with x minus 2? And then minus 3? Now, do you get, I did not tell you a stretch factor. I didn't tell you that. So put an A right there. And then let's figure out what the stretch factor would be if I had this. So here's 2, -3. It's down here. That's the vertex. I said it was the vertex. But what if I tell you one more point on it? And that one more point is at 3, 0. See, I know then that the parabola does this, but what's the equation for it? If this right there is at 3, 0. I taught you how to where to put that 3, 0 so that you can figure out A. I'm going to pause for a second. So we're just reviewing. If I gave you the vertex, you'd be able to write this, but you don't know the stretch factor. Then you take this extra point here that we also know is on the parabola and you stick it in. That's the x, that's the y. So x is 3 and y is 0. And this equation has so many numbers in it, but it's also got the a, so you can solve for a. 0 equals 3 minus 2 is 1, 1 squared is 1, and 1 times a is just a. Minus 3. And I'm adding 3 to both sides, and I know that 3 equals a, and so a is 3. Cool. And then, so often right there, kids, stop. Write the equation then. You now know the vertex and you know the stretch factor. Write the equation. In a second, I'm going to ask you to compare it with the kid next to you. It's this, except you now know A. I'm going to pause while you give that one a shot. Okay, so here's the equation. Y equals A, x minus 2, because that was the vertex. See, the vertex is right here. X minus 2 squared minus 3. And then, oh yeah, A is 3. So I put a 3 right there. There's my equation. Okay. Feel like you could do that on a test? All right. So, what else do we have to know? Well, what if I gave you this and I cannot tell the, wait, I'm going to put a 2 there. I can't tell the vertex super easy. Then they ask me to write it in vertex form. First, you got to write the vertex. What's the vertex? Could you just graph it? You could, but it would take you a long time to find the lowest point. So what's that other way of finding the vertex? Claire, do you remember? You are correct. And that tells you the x. But the vertex has an x and a y. But that will be very handy, and you can put it there. Then you'll stick it back in the equation to figure out the y part. This is f of that. So figure out negative b over 2a, and then stick that in the function. I'm going to pause for a second while you try that. All right, Tully, what's negative b?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. Over 2a, Tully?
2 times 2 is 4.
All right. So then that's negative 4 over 4, which is negative 1. And I'm going to rewrite it. X equals negative 1. In case they needed the axis of symmetry, you've got to write it like that anyways. Cool. Rissy, I've now got negative 1. What do I do with it? Put it in for x. Nunez, have you already got that done yet?
Yeah.
Okay. When you did negative 1 squared, you got 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 minus 4 minus 10. What'd you get?
Negative 12.
All right. I think he's right. Raise your hand if you had negative 12. Okay, awesome. Now, I forced you to find the vertex. Now, write it in vertex form. See, once you get the vertex, then I hope it'll be easy to write in vertex form. There's one thing, though, that I think some people are going to forget. It's like a gotcha in this. And we are in precalc, so got to expect that there's going to be something challenging about it. Okay, opposite of the negative 1 is plus 1. That's one place that's kind of a gotcha. Forgetting the squared happens all the time. I know some people are going to forget that. Minus 12. And then this is the biggest gotcha. That's wrong. Why? Yes? Yes, there's a stretch factor of 2 right there. See that 2 in the front? That means there has to be a 2 right here. Yes, you take whatever stretch factor you know is there and you bring it down and you put it in there. If there'd have been a negative 2, you'd have brought down the negative 2. Whatever's in the front. You got to start thinking, do I know the stretch factor? All right. So there's a really good review of a lot of stuff. Here's one more thing, and it's completely different because it's not x to the second. It's x to the third. You know like 8 things about this, I hope. I'd like you to tell me how many terms it has. I'm not going to put a question mark for each thing. I'll just put a colon. How many terms does it have? I'd like to know what degree it is. I'd like to know all the coefficients. Just list them from left to right. What are all the coefficients? Next, what's the lead term? Because it tells you most of the stuff you know about, like the right end and the left end and stuff. That comes from the lead term. What's the lead coefficient? And what is the y-intercept Oh, and there's another thing. You know the right end? I always do the right end first because it's the first thing you see when you see this equation here. The first thing you see after the y equals, that tells you the right end. And I'm fine with you doing an up arrow or a down arrow. And then the left end is either the same or different. Look at all the things you have to know about polynomials. That's why we're reviewing that today. And then the rest of today is just me reminding you how to factor. So I'm hoping that's going to be just like a walk in the park. We're actually slowing down a little bit because we got ahead of some of the classes. Some of the teachers have gotten sick and had to stay home and stuff, and they're gotten a little behind, so we're going to slow down, which is cool. Gives you extra review, and you'll be extra good at our next test. So if you feel like this is a lot of review, it is. But that really helps you do well on your tests, too. Okay, Trent, tell me how many terms this thing had.
4.
4 is correct. Each term is like separated by an add or subtract, so those 4 things like x to the third, that's a term. 3x squared, that's a term. All right, next up, Iris, the degree.
3.
The most common mistake people say is they add up all the powers. You were correct, you don't do that. You just take the biggest one, so it's 3. All right, let's go with Anna for all coefficients.
X squared, 3x squared.
The coefficients are the numbers in front. Okay, so the coefficients, those are these numbers. 1, 3, 1, and that last thing, that's not a coefficient because there's no x. So it's just 1, and then 3, and then 1. Those were the coefficients. Ryan Bonthius, what's the lead term?
X to the third.
Yep. You could have said 1x to the third, but there's no reason to have to say the 1. So good. The lead coefficient, Brady. 1 is correct. The y-intercept, George.
-2.
And yes, except you'd have to put it in a parenthesis with a comma. So think about it. If it's the y-intercept, one of those 2 spots is 0. Think it through. Because -2 is kind of right, but you got to put it in here. All right, hint, y-intercept is where what is 0?
0, comma, negative.
There you go, x is 0. So 0, comma, negative, what was it? 2, 3?
-2.
-2, thank you. All right, now the right end. Greta, the right end is up or down?
Up.
How do you know?
Because it's a positive.
Because the lead coefficient is positive, correct. The left end, and I would understand if somebody wrote same or different, but you've got to say up or down, because you are figuring out, is it the same or different than the other side? Let's see. Mr. K, do you know this one?
Down.
But why?
Because it's
This has an odd, technically it's called the odd what? It starts with a D? Odd degree, there you go. I mean, there's lots of odd numbers and even numbers in this, but it's the odd degree that matters. Okay, good. So it's down. So odd means different, and it's different than the other end, which was up. Cool. You feel like you can handle that? Like, those are all so easy that we'd probably give you a question that has like 6 of those. And you have to get them all right to get the credit. All right. So now factoring. You have to know every kind of factoring in precalc. And today is a day where we just practice factoring. So here is some factoring problems that I think are helpful. That is factored. I know it doesn't look factored, but would you write it as factored? Brady, put that up in phone jail. Can't use that during class. Ryan Bonthius, can you tell me why this is factored? Do you know? I'll give you a hint. What squared just means is times itself. So write it that way. Does that look more factored now? See what I mean? That's factored form. So sometimes it is factored already and you might not have known it. This one was factored. Even when it was written like that, it was factored. All right, here's another kind of factoring that's weird. Except I'm going to put a 4 in the front. Now, some of you are going to do it, you're going to think you're doing it right, but you're doing it wrong. I'm going to stop early on this one because a lot of people are going to do it wrong. Do you get that there is a 4 in both parts and it therefore needs to be factored out first? If you didn't catch that, 4 comes out first. That's called the GCF. George, after the 4 comes out, it's really like dividing by 4. What do I put inside the parentheses?
X squared minus 16.
16.
Minus 4.
There you go, good. And now, what would be the gotcha here? Do you know, George? Like, you're kind of right, but you're kind of wrong.
No, I don't know.
Okay, it can be factored again. It's so often that people factor something, but they don't factor it all the way. Because this is x plus 2 and x minus 2. Get used to that pattern. This is called difference of squares. Because see, that's a perfect square and that's a perfect square. And this is a minus, which is called a difference. So that's called a difference of squares. The most commonly left one is this. Kids get a 4 factored out and then they have x squared minus 1 and they think, well, I can't factor that. Yeah, you can. Factor that one. Try that one on the board. The self-control to have that banana bread in front of you, but yet not eat it, it's amazing. I don't know how you can do that. I'd be done with bread. And no, I'm not trying to burn your banana bread. I don't mind if people eat in here, as long as you don't leave me a mess. All right, so did you say x minus 1 and x minus 1? That's close, but it's wrong. Nunez, you know what it actually is?
Oh, it's a plus 1.
Correct. And if you're just kind of guessing at these, you can always just check it. What's the outside make? Negative 1x. What's the inside make? Positive 1x. And those cancel. That's why you're left with just the x squared and the negative 1. Okay. So why do we factor? Like, we're going to do a lot of factoring today. Well, what's the point? Why do we want to factor? Well, I have found there's like literally 25 times each semester where you've got to factor it or you can't get the answer. Today we're just going to tell you to factor, but why? Because usually we set the equation where there was the y, you know, y equals. We set that equal to 0 to find the zeros. And then you make this equal to 0 and that equal to 0. So x equals negative 1, because when you put that in, this becomes 0. Or when you put in regular 1 right there, this becomes 0. And 0 times anything makes it equal 0. All right, so let's say I got it all factored and it looks like this. And it equals 0. So that is factored. I wouldn't ask you to factor it anymore. It's already factored all the way. So then what are the answers? Arrow, tell me how to find one of these answers.
2x minus 3 is 0.
Oh, nice. You even did the hard one. That equals 0, and so does this. I totally get that some people just do these in their head and say x equals negative 7. That's fine, but you might have a harder time doing that in your head. George, how do I solve this thing?
Plus 3.
Now what?
And divide both sides by 2.
Yep. 3 over 2. and negative 7. Those are called the x-intercepts, the roots, the zeros, and they're the solutions to this whole big equation. They're four things: x-intercepts, roots, zeros, and solutions. All right, so we've gone through some weird factoring. Here's some more weird factoring. 2x squared plus 4x. A lot of people are like, there's no number at the end, so I can't factor it. No, you can factor it. You just look for the greatest common factor, the GCF. And again, if some of you go to school in like Iowa or California or Texas, they would call it GCD, greatest common divisor. Divisor and factor are the same thing, but your calculator even doesn't have a GCF button. It does have a GCD button because it's made in Texas. And in Texas, they call it GCD, greatest common divisor. All right, so did you get that 2 went into everything? If you just take the 2 out, you did it halfway, and you don't want to do anything in life halfway. You got to look and see, am I done yet? No, you're not done yet because there's an x in here. So then you got to take the x out also, and then you would have x plus 2. It would have been smarter to do a 2x right off the bat, and then x plus 2. But either way, I got to it. Same answer here and here. Would work either way. Just don't stop when you're partway factored. All right, now the hardest kind of factoring of all. The kind where there's like a number in the front. They look like this when they're done. So what would this problem have been? It would have been 2x squared minus 3x minus, I'm multiplying it out quick in my head, minus 3x and minus 10x makes minus 13x. And then the last would be plus 15. So if I said, factor this, if you've got a good short-term memory, awesome, you already got it factored, but I just want to walk you through it. You go 2 sets of parentheses. And you see, is there any number in everything? Now, 2 doesn't go into 13, so I can't factor out a 2, for example. So then you got to go 2x and x. That's your step 1. Iris, your step 2 is not to pick numbers. Do you know what the step 2 is?
Pick which side.
Yes. Should it be a minus and a plus or a plus and a plus? Well, if there's a minus in it at all, then there has to be one negative. But there might be 2 negatives. Alex K., do you know how to decide the signs? Do you think it's 1 minus or 2 minuses?
1 minus 1.
That's what most of them are, but this one comes out positive. So this number and this number both have to be negative. Now that you know that, the only thing left is that the 15 can be broken up into a 5 and a 3, or a 15 and a 1. And then is it 5 and 3 or 15 and 1? I don't know, so I'll check. I go 5 and 3, and I check. And I go outside negative 6x, inside negative 5x. Does that together make 13? No, it doesn't. It makes 11. Whenever you get something completely different than what you wanted, you change the numbers. If you ever get the exact opposite of what you wanted, you change the signs. So now I change this and this to a 5 here and a 3 there. Would you please find me the 2 solutions while I talk to my colleague who stepped in the room for a second? Okay, I just got that cleared up with that colleague. Remember, this is like this. So, then you add 3, and is this going to come out exactly the same as that other one? Maybe without a negative or something. 3 over 2. And this one, you can do these in your head. This is just x equals 5. Because what you should be doing is thinking, if I put a 5 here, would it make it equal 0? If I put a 3 over 2 here, I started doing this, and I really kind of like it. Look at how that cancels, and then it's 3 minus 3 makes 0. See? You can be sure you didn't do it upside down. Tons of kids are going to write 2 over 3. So just check it, and if you look at it and you go, wait a minute, 2 over 3, that wouldn't work. 3 over 2 would make the 2's cancel, and then it's 3 minus 3, which makes it 0. So there's your 2 answers. Okay, So I need to give you one last hard factoring question. And I need a second here. All right, you ready? 2x squared minus 7x plus 5. Factor that. And there's your last one. Factor that one. Hint, there's a GCF. If you want to make your life easier, always look for something that would factor out of everything first. On the blue one, nothing factors out of everything because you got even numbers and odd numbers, and that usually means that there's nothing that goes into everything. Well, actually, look at that. On the red one, there's even and odd numbers, but there's something that goes into everything. All right, try those two and then compare them with the kid next to you. Okay, let's see how you did. I want you to talk it through, not just give the final answer. So we're going to go with, all right, I do understand I gave you too much time there, but cell phones need to go away at this point. We'll take it back out in a minute when we're working on homework. Greta, can you tell me the first thought? How do you do this? Alex, put your phone in phone jail, please. I did give you a warning. Put it up in phone jail. I gave you a warning. Okay, go ahead. What again? What? No, I'm talking about the that blue one.
You do 2x and then the x.
Okay, and then do the signs.
2 minuses.
Because that number came out positive, you need 2 negatives to make it positive. Okay, and then the last thing.
Plug in like the 5 and 1.
Okay, and I'll try it this way and I'll see if it works. That's negative 2x, that's negative 5x, and that makes negative 7x. You hit it. That's it. That makes sense? All right. Garrett, the other one.
You factor out the 3 first.
The 3 comes out and you have what left?
3x squared minus x minus 2.
Excellent. And then we do this part again.
That would be 3x and x.
And then the pluses and minuses.
1 plus 1 minus,
How do you know that?
because the last number is a negative.
The last number is a negative. So you need something positive times a negative. Okay, and then
That
2.
would be plus 2 minus 1.
All right. And if you had those backwards, you'd be able to tell because you check this. This is 2x. That's negative 3x. And if you had it backwards, you would have got a completely different answer. But we get negative x, which is what we wanted. Cool. All right. Now, I know some of you probably just got those 2 wrong. You should then note for yourself, today is really important for me then. Because if you got those wrong, then you're going to get them wrong on the test. Unless you fix it between now and then. All right. So make sure you get some help today if you need some individual help on factoring. All right. So there is a factoring worksheet. And we're going to do the first one together. So everybody please open up that worksheet. And there are 20 questions. But literally, you should be able to do a minute. Should you be able to get 2 problems done in 1 minute if you really know how to do factoring. Maybe the last ones will be a little slower than that, but all right, Claire, can you give me the first one?
Yeah, it's y equals x squared plus 5x.
X squared plus what?
5x.
Just that? All right, good. Then you just have to factor that. Now I know that's a weird one because it doesn't have a number at the end, but does it have a GCF?
Yeah.
Yep. Mason, what do you get?
X.
And then you get,
Ooh,
divide them both by x.
I don't know. What-
Okay.
What was squared times?
So x squared divided by x just gives you x. Because, think of it backwards. If you have to go like x times x, you'll get x squared, see? And then what's the other part?
Just 5.
Yep. And there it is. That is factored, just as much as if there was two parentheses, that's factored. And some people get confused, well, what are the two answers then? The two answers would be x equals -5, because when you put a -5 here, it makes it 0. Or what could you put here that would make it 0? X equals 0. You still have two answers on that kind. All right, that was number 1. Numero dos. Dominic.
Y equals x squared minus 1.
I hope it's easy peasy. What do you get?
X plus 5 minus 1.
X and X plus and a minus to make this negative, and then 5 and 5. Yep. All right, I'm hoping today, because we spent a lot of time on the basic 20 and the first 20, I'm hoping today is just like a walk in the park. Did a lot of review. All right, that's all I got for you for today.